I tell my students, you are going to be like Spider-Man. I then flash the web-slinging gesture. My students look at me with surprise, thinking my teacher is asking me to be a superhero. Awkward at first, each refines his or her own gesture. We continue to leverage this gesture as we innovate on this tool and start to learn the next. Motivated by the web's superhero overtones, my EL students learn content and language faster and more easily. And more importantly, creation of the top-down web themselves, no template from day one, supports their suggestions, adaptations, and innovations. The top-down web is a research-based graphic organizer. Although important for all our students, it's key for ELs. My goal was for them to integrate content and language knowledge. They took it a step further. They offered kinesthetic and other adaptations, making it more engaging and even exciting. And they intuitively did so. Although ELs are often reported to be behind in certain areas, it's important to remember what they're reported to be behind in, and that is English vocabulary and English reading and writing. Just as I seem behind studying abroad in France, having neither the economics knowledge nor the French vocabulary, I dug myself into not one, but 3 dictionaries. Luckily, our students have other tools and their creativity. It was Min, a 3rd grader, who led this student-led innovation movement for me. One day he pointed his fingers flat, slowly down, and finally made his own version of the web-slinging gesture. This is the kinesthetic motion we all now use when engaging in a reading routine that often includes creation of a top-down web. But Min is not a star student in all learning environments. He's a SPED student. What can we learn from our students' learning and their challenges? It's the perfect situation of UDL, where we build from our SPED and our EL students what works for all. What other innovations can our students help us to understand to make content accessible for all? Thinking back to that top-down web graphic organizer versus all those dictionaries, I think of my kindergartner, Ada, who added complementary illustrations to her top-down web, leveraging her creativity and background knowledge, as well as concrete materials when learning color vocabulary. Given the dramatic change in my classroom, I now know students can do it. I can facilitate, sit back, listen, and learn. This is a paradigm shift where learning content is changing. Tools, strategies are often consistent, but add in student-led innovation and you gain student ownership of learning. And it takes less and less effort for our students to make these adaptations and innovations. In consideration of the gradual release of responsibility, where each student is moved along the continuum from modeling through practice to independence at his or her own rate, I consider my 6th grader a reluctant reader who oftentimes has to be prompted to start her classwork, certainly her tests, who had the agency to ask if she could add a top-down web to her assessment and independently did it. Students are change makers. They're agents of their own learning. If we don't engage them in the process, the best teaching will go unlearned. Another example is my 7th grade newcomers. So engaged in the process from day one, they were teaching, debating, adapting. Yuri decided to make his top-down web in his first language based on the story of his name learned through conversations at home, while Arthur used English. Laura Maria split her topic shape in a move so subtle her teacher didn't perceive it until Laura Maria presented it. What can we learn from these moments, often micro moments of creativity? If we're not vigilant, we can miss them. Seek student moves as you seek teacher moves. And this is an ownership paradigm shift for our newest to veteran educators. Think of your SPED and EL experts who are learning content often different from their peers. Here, you'll see orthographic post-it supports that can benefit all students, created by our duly identified SPED EL students. And here, an added conclusion that benefits the writing process moving from planning to writing. How many times have we sat in professional development thinking, this isn't right for me, this isn't given by somebody in a position similar to mine? We can anticipate misconceptions, differentiate, translate, but our students are in the optimal position as they adapt their strategies and tools. They are our classroom co-conspirators offering their own form of PD. If you're willing, please join me in the top-down web kinesthetic gesture that started it all off, pointing your fingers flat, slowly down, and then your own version of the web-slinging gesture. Coming into our classroom, you would see students surrounded by the webs that they've created, igniting future creativity and innovation. Here, we're going to hear from another classroom co-conspirator talking about his organization of his thinking, offering his own form of PD.
There's a contaminated item. Somebody touches the contaminated item, which can lead to theories, or somebody just claiming something off the bat. The theories can lead to tested claims, which can lead to somebody becoming credible.
Although I had the formative assessment data that my students were making demonstrable progress, I also wanted quantitative data, and the action research results showed that the majority of students made gains with their top-down web innovations. This all came home to me personally when my kindergartner brought home his rules and his reading webs. A reluctant writer himself, he'd rather be outside. So with a tracing innovation, he described his kindergarten day of the bus, eating, and math, and went on to orally elaborate about how he doesn't get butterflies in his stomach, he gets rotten eggs. An oral description I never would have heard were it not for his tracing innovation. The message is clear for my students at home and my students in the classroom. Students are intuitively adapting their strategies and tools and innovating. In conclusion, identify, seize, capture those moments, often micro moments of creativity from your students to support those who are innovating, to support all your students making content more accessible, and to support the students you haven't yet met. Any additional questions? Let's ask our students. Thank you.